this session for you guys. So I'll once again log out and log in. So this administrator tool is being used for managing Informatica from ins and out. This talks about integration services, repository services, and lot many things for their metadata management. So you can see here there's something comes up, say integration server, repository server, these all are services.
Indra, can you show me like where is this Informatica administrator located? Like after the installation I'm seeing that VMware station and then I am switching on the power. Then,
Okay,
but I don't see this administrator.
So can you go to the Informatica folder? There's server, there's a client. So you need to go to server and then you find Informatica administrator homepage.
Okay. Server.
Yeah.
And then Informatica administrator homepage. Okay.
You click that. Sometimes it will not open in Chrome, then you might have to use Explorer.
Okay.
And while installing the software, I think you must be having some administration password given during the time of installation.
So, yeah, now I'm able to get that login screen.
Okay, so can you just go ahead? If it is not opening, sometime it will not open. So what you have to do is, you might have to go back to the server and you have to say start services. I'll show you here. What I'm talking about, I'll show you. The services, you go here and there's Informatica services. Can you see this? Stop and restart. This services has to get started, which is already there. It has been already available. You need not to go to the services directly. It is already said start services, stop services. Okay?
Okay.
So here we'll talk about a domain, logs, monitoring, bit of reports, and security. So primarily what is exactly happening here? So Informatica is an ETL tool which will act as a server and then it will also act as a client at the same time. So probably depends what kind of node you're using in. Let me give you some brief. Last time also I've given an idea. I'll just do it once again today for you guys. So we have something called metadata, which is known as repository. Now Informatica, if you talk about, they need one thing called repository, which is for a metadata perspective, right, where they can have all their tables, source, transformation, and targets information. Okay. And second thing what they need is integration services. So when you say integration services, it talks about an ETL server. So when you create a map here, which is source and target and target information. So you all map is there from the designer point of view, where you want to execute these services, those maps. So integration services are there, which will execute ETL maps. Okay? Is that okay, Govinti?
Yeah.
Let's talk about what is prerequisite. You need to have at least one users or schema created at backend like Oracle. So for example, I'll show you mine. So when you talk about Informatica repository, they will create some of the tables by own. I'll show you. For example, I have connected InfoRep. Can you see 512 tables is already created by them by Informatica while creating a repository. So I'll do one thing. I'll create one more user for you and show you how it gets created. Okay.
Okay.
So when Informatica you will create, it will create all the possible their own tables. This is for their own metadata management. When you create maps, those are gonna stored here. Okay. So I'll say create Informatica repository. I'm saying IR. Okay. I'm really sorry. Create user. Then I say I'm granting the permission DBA to IR. Okay, and I'll say connect IR. See, there's a no table here right now. That's fine. Can you see there's no tables available? So I'll come back to administrator. And before that, let me give you one more concept. So we'll have one domain, and domain will have nodes. So why do we need this nodes? You can have one node for repository, and we can also have another node for your integration services. Now why do we need this? Any idea? When you have a bigger data to process on a bigger companies like a bank and telecom, so they need to have individual hosting where they can process more data. And it has to be very specific and separate nodes. Okay? So let's go to, so here is the main section where you have all your domains. So now we have a domain which by default is the system name which already taken in. It's saying integration services and repository services. You can see that it's saying up and running. I have a node which is known as Indra B. That's node 01 they have created. So let's create repository new for you. So you go to actions, create a new repository. Click on repository. Name of the repository, I say Informatica Rep Asset Training. Okay. Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you select the license which talks about which license you'll be carrying, and then the node you have. Click next. It will ask you the database, what database you want to create. So you have IR, right? Which you have just created. This is the connection string XC. Okay. Then there's something called specify the creation option. The repository which is already exists, if you want to do that, or say no, I don't have anything exist now, please go ahead and create new one. Once you say finish, you can see there's something activities is going on. This is enabling the services and then it will create the repository. So there's a process of repository creation, and I'll show you here once they complete their process how many tables you'll be expecting. The number of tables would be 512 tables. So you can see that creation of service contents in progress. You can see that repository services available. So let's go back and figure out. Can you see?
Yes.
512 tables are created, so your repository is up and running. Okay. Next process is to create integration services. So I'll go and create an integration services. Okay, so I'll write Informatica integration services for training. I'll say next. So you can see that there's a two repository is there available. One was the earlier, another one which I've created now. So I'll select the training one. The username and password would be administrator, and the password what you have used before while installing it. So once you say finish, remember the user ID and password has to be very accurate, otherwise it will not create an issues. So say create finish. It will ask you the code pages and a code. So let it be okay. Okay, so it's been already created, but it's saying disable. You need to go and enable it. Yes, there's one error you'll get it. There's a reason behind. You have to go to the repository. Can you see that repository mode property? The mode is saying exclusive. So you have to go and make it normal. And you say okay, and you need to restart it. Because it will act repository services as a normal mode, and then your integration will be working upon. But it will not create the tables. The tables and number of tables remain same. Okay, so we'll go to the Informatica, sorry, this one. Okay, I'll say please restart. So it will disable and enable services once again. Can you see that? Services is available. So what does this mean? Now if you go to the domain specific or maybe node specific, you'll find that there's two services for repository and two services for integration services. And now you have created just now this one and you created this one. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now let me tell you some kind of operations here which is important for you to understand. So if you select one of them, let's say I'm selecting a training repository, it will give you complete information which repository schema using and right, what is the connection string, okay, it gives you all the properties for connections and other stuffs. At the same time, you can see here the actions. Can you see here?
Yes. Uh-huh.
This is for your services to make it, up and running or stopping and restarting, kind of stuffs. So it helps you to disable the services and again enable the services. So if you say recycle, it's kind of a restart of your system. It will disable and enable both. Whereas you say disable, it will disable and then you have to go and for click and enable once again. Do you want me to show that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if you say disable, it will ask, I'll say okay, it will disable all these services, repository services for this. And then you have to go and click enable to activate and make it available. So now it's disable, right? It is not set enable, you have not activated once again. You have to go back and you have to say enable the services. You can see here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll click enable the services, it will enable the services once again. So there's a two kind of process, one is disable, another is enable. But if you do a recycle, what it does?
It will disable and then enable.
Yes, it will disable first and it will enable. Okay, and there's something called logs. So whatever action you're doing here, it is being already, it's recorded. You can go and see that what are log actions you've been doing in. As of now, let's talk about more here. So I'm going back. This is the integration services. It will say which repository is associated. You can see that I have Informatica rep training which I've just created. Okay, now where is the use? Let me show you. The first tool you have to go here is going to be repository manager. What is the use of a repository manager? Any idea? To manage your repository management, all your items, source, targets, folders. So here if you see that one repository is already added, which is the older one. So I can go here and I say add repository. Sorry, the user ID would be administrator. Password will be infor. For me, sorry. Repository name, either I can do it from here or I have to connect. So I might have to use the older one. I'll create the new, if you want to say new one, I'll go and create new one. So I say add repository of your own. So Informatica, then rep and training. Can you see it asks you the repository name? So you're basically creating a repository here, which is already done for my case. I've already made it a before its repository for the Informatica rep. So this will create, because we already created your tables, so whatever you're going to do here, it will create all the repository items at your repository users. So I'll delete this. Let's connect the old one I have. Can you see this? I got source, I got target, I've created something for you guys. So I have two sources. So repository manager is showing you all your items which has been created. So I had source, target, I got some mappings and workflows created for you people. So I've just made it an example. So the benefit out here is whatever you create for the repository, it will automatically save here. So anything you make changes at designer, it will automatically save. So for example, now Informatica training, what you have to do is you have to go and create folders. You can create your own folders. Let's say training folder. Can you see that?
Yes.
So training has its own folder. So this talks about session altogether. So when you create anything in training, when you connect to training, automatically this source, target, mapping, workflow, configuration automatically will come. I'll show you how. So you click on designer. Can you see that training folder has come automatically? So right now the older one is Informatica training, you can see, but I've created a new one is training. So it has all the sources, all the targets. There's a similar structure that you can see at the top. It replaced with the new structure. It's a skeleton remains same. Now you cannot delete it from here. You can only connect and disconnect. Make sense? So I'll show you the sources. You can see the source flat file here. You got my point? This is what I made it.
So we can copy from one folder to the other folder the sources and the targets.
Excuse me?
So can we copy the sources from one folder to the other folder if you want to?
Yeah, you can do that, but that's not needed actually. It's going to be complete different projects. So when you have a one project, right, you can create a folder for that. It's a project specific primarily. And this is anything you want to do, you can do it from here. This is export management. You can see export and import. It goes in XML. Okay. So that you'll do it later on. That goes to administrator. You don't have to do that. From a developer point of view, you're being more concerned about your, making your maps. So even your administrator will create a folder and give it to you. All the permissions. That's all.
Okay.
So this is what is altogether, for a folder management. You can simply delete the training if you want. Okay, it's saying using by another user because you already connected. So if you have to disconnect from here, make sense? Now you have to go to the folder and you say delete. You can see that?
Yes.
Because this is a repository manager. Here you have to create all your repository, all the management. So I'll just come back here and I'll open the workflow manager. I've created something here. You can see that one workflow is there. So creating a digital tool, all the tools data will come here. You can see workflow. Everywhere you have to connect with your repository. Can you see here? And can you see his integration services within the repository? Because now you have to run that map. You need to run those maps. For that, probably you need to get. Okay, we'll take it later on. I'm just closing this for a while. So is it making sense for you to understand what is the use of your administrator? It is exactly creating your, it is basically using an administration point of view. It will administrate all the repository and integration services. Then we can probably work on your repository manager. So the first is the administrator and second is the repository. Am I correct?
Yes.
Then only you can go ahead and work with your designers, workflow and monitors. So there's a sequence here. Do you understand? RDWM, R repository, then you go for design, then you go for workflow, and then you go monitor. So once you created a folder, then you create a design map, then you create a workflow, and then when you run the workflow, you can see that monitoring the number of records is inserted or not. Okay?
Okay.
I'll show you just now. Maybe tomorrow in the session I can show you how to create that. So is it making sense for you to understand?
So is this what we discussed on last class also?
Yeah, this is what we discussed. Okay, I have one more thing to tell you. So let's disconnect it for a while. Okay, and I'll say one more thing, the repository which is a configured domain. Can you see there's a two repository coming here? One way I used to go and add something which is manual work, but don't do that. Go and say configure domains. So if I say training, it will also create training here. Remember, this is what you have created just now. Right? This is what you have created. So if I'll go and say double click connect, the user is administrator, password is info. Can you see that it's created? So I'll go and create new folder for here, say my Informatica training. Or let's say there's some projects we are using it, so we'll write PRJ project sales data loading. Am I making a sense? Okay, so now let's go to designer. Sorry, let's go to the designer. Now you have one folder is created here. Can you see this? Now you're not working with the older repository. Now the repository which you made it is working here. You got my point?
Yeah.
If I take one of these databases, for example, I'm taking one example. I'll show you more in detail with the next classes what I'm just trying to make it simple for you. Okay, so I'll take one of the table. Okay, whatever you do in source, you have to do two important steps. You need to save and validate. Okay, so you simply say save. So when you save, you can see that it is saving here, and you also have a validate where you can simply validate them. Or when you're creating a save, it's automatically validated. You come back here. You simply say refresh. Can you see this is what you have created? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So repository manager is to manage all your repositories items, all the items. Okay, so I need to simply disconnect from here, and also I'll disconnect from this repository. So if you want to say I want to delete this folder, go here and just say delete. Right, it's deleted. So then you say disconnect from this repository. You go back to your administrator, say no, I don't want any more, this repository is done. So you have integration services, you simply delete them up. So where is that? We have this, yeah. So delete. So you need to delete first integration services and then you'll have to delete the repository. Okay, now you got this repository. You can say delete from here. Okay, those are gone. So go to repository manager. If you connect, what it says. Can you see that?
Yeah.
There's no repository. See, it's already specify the domain. So there's nothing really you can work upon. So you simply delete it from here. You can only connect with your existing WAN. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So you understood what is the use of administrator here? It is being administrating of your servers and services for to run your ETL and maintain your repository, manager, designers, workflow and monitor. So if you can see, it still has the, because from the backend you need to go and drop that user your own. So you simply have to say connect sys as sysdba password. So from backend you need to go and done your own way because there's already created, they only do from the front end side. Okay? So once it is connected, you have to say drop user IR cascade because the tables is already created. Make sense?
Yes.
So that's all for today. Probably we'll start more out from the, so can we start actual Informatica by tomorrow so that we can start working upon